Hi everyone. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to implement a mana attribute. And so it will show up in this mana bar. And when you use your dash, it will use 50 mana. And there's also a auto regen mana on your character. And you can also go onto a gameplay pad and regenerate mana even faster. And last but not least, you will also be able to use Godmode, and that will not use any mana. Mana attribute is very useful for casting spells, using any like ability that's should be very costly. So let's dive right in. First, let's open up the gym level and set up a nice relaxing environment for our game dev. So it's L_shooter gym. And then in the world setting, you'll see that the default gameplay experience is the control points. Navigate to it, and let's just disable the bots for now. So scroll down, it adds the bots in the components add list. So it's B_shooter bot spawner. So let's navigate to that one also. And let's open that one. I am not sure, I have this weird document window that opens every time I open a blueprint. But yeah, for now I'm just ignoring it. So under the B_shooter bot spawner, you can actually change the amount of bots to 0. So then you can just go around and test as you will without dying a bunch of times. So let's just go ahead and play and test that this is all fine. So yeah, now there's no bots spawning. So what we'll actually want to do is to kind of replicate how the health bar is working in the health attribute. So this bar right here, let's just start by creating the mana attribute and applying it to the dash ability. So that every time you use the dash, it will use half your mana. So it means that if you use it twice, you won't be able to use the ability again until you get a mana pack or anything anything that regenerates mana. Okay, so the way the attributes are set up in Lyra is there are two attribute sets. There's the combat attribute and the health attribute. And those are set up in the Lyra player state. So you can see them right here. It creates the health set and the combat set. And where we'll want to create our new mana attribute is actually the Lyra combat set. So it'll be very similar to the health attribute since it has a max mana and a base mana cost. The only difference, or the biggest difference, is it doesn't relate to dying, and also it doesn't use executions to calculate the damage or the health that's taken away by damage. So it'll be a bit simpler in this way. So let's go ahead and copy a few over and then just rename it to mana. So let's go ahead and copy the gameplay attribute data for health and max health. And let's copy them in private. And the only difference between those two is that it will not hide from modifiers. So your gameplay effects will directly modify the mana. We don't need anything that equates to damage in the way of health. So let's copy that over. And then let's copy over the attribute accessors. So those generate a bunch of very useful functions for getting the data off of the attribute. So let's just copy the health and the max health. And then this is in the combat set. And then let's copy over the on-ramp functions for network functionality. So whenever your attribute changes on the server, it will replicate to the clients. And the only two we need here are the pre-attribute based change and the pre-attribute change. We just basically want to clamp down the attributes so it will never go beyond 0 mana and it will never go beyond the maximum mana. So let's copy that over. And the pre and post gameplay execute. All right, and then let's just change everything that says health to mana. So it's Control H for find and replace. So let's write health and then change it to mana. And then let's replace all in this file. All right, and let's generate bodies for all these new functions. So let's start with the onRep functions. So they're very straightforward. It just calls this macro, and with the mana. Okay, and then same thing with the onRep max. Oh, onRep max mana. Okay, max mana. And then we also need to set them up for replication. So we can just duplicate those two and then change them with, replace them with mana and max mana. All right. And then clamping attribute will have the same functionality as the health has. So clamp attribute. So essentially, if the attribute is the health attribute, it clamps it. Same with the max health attribute. So we'll just take all this and just rename it to mana. So health and mana, replace all. Let's replace all of those. Okay. And then that is almost it. Actually, we don't need the pre-gameplay execute in the post one. We might need in the future. I might, I'll go and I'll cover like things like God mode and not using mana later in this video. But for now, we do need the pre-attribute base change and the pre-attribute change. So those we'll call the clamp. All right. Generate definition. Generate definition, which is just Alt Enter for resharper. Oh, I'll just get rid of this definition here. And let's see what the health does. It just calls the clamp attribute, and that's all. Okay. So that looks pretty good. Oh, and we also need to initialize their values. So mana, oh, let's say 100. Oh, and then the maximum mana is also 100. So now every single player that has a player state and has this combat set will have 100 mana. So let's go ahead and just stop the build and rebuild. Since we made a lot of changes to a header file, it's a good idea to just rebuild and not do live coding in that case. It sometimes works, but a lot of time it gives off some warnings, and especially that we'll be using this attribute in a gameplay effect. We just want it to be nice and updated. All right, it finished compiling. Let's go to the recent levels, the shooter gym. And our next step is that we will set a cost to the dash ability and a cost of 50 mana. So let's navigate to the dash ability. I think it's GA hero dash. Aha. All right. And you can set the cost of an ability in its class default, and then you scroll down, and then it'll be under the costs. And then this is where you place your gameplay effect. So let's go ahead and create a gameplay effect actually. And this one, let's put it close to the cooldown. So let's see where the cooldown effect is. So it's under all content gameplay effects. And let's go ahead and just create a new gameplay effect. Okay, so gameplay effect. Let's call this one GE hero dash cost. Okay. Yeah, so For the cost, we'll just have it use up mana. So you just have to add a new modifier, and then your attribute mana will actually show up. This is the one you just created, so it's really nice. So let's have it cost 50 mana. So in this case, it'll be minus 50. And let's compile save. And this effect will apply instantaneously. It doesn't have a duration, or it's not infinite. So there's really nothing else we need to add here. You could have it have a tag for the cost, but there's really no usage right now for that. Yeah, so let's just go ahead and assign this hero dashed cost to the hero dash. So let's go ahead and scroll down in the class default. Oh, I mean scroll up. And then in the cost gameplay effect class, let's just use the select asset from the content browser. So that's our GE hero dash cost. And let's save that and let's test it out. So we should be able to only dash twice, and then it will have used all of our mana, and we won't ever be able to dash ever again. So 1, 2, and yeah, we can't use it anymore. So the next step we want to do is actually make use of the health bar UI and just duplicate it and create our own mana component that kind of has all the nice getters that the health component has. So let's go ahead and actually find or see where this UI is. So to do that, go under Tools, Debug, Widget Reflector, and then it's not a hit testable widget. So it would just be pick painted widget. And there you have it. Once it hovers over it, you can press escape to choose, and then you will be able to see that this is the widget health bar. Oh, let me go ahead and stop this, and let's navigate to the health bar. And let's just go ahead and duplicate it for now. We'll just, basically right now we're just doing the UI setup without any of the functionality. So let's duplicate this. Let's call this mana bar. And we'll give this one a different tint so it looks different. So let's go ahead and change the color and opacity to, I guess, something more blue. More like this. Okay. Compile, save. And let's see where the health bar is actually located. So just navigate to the health bar widget. Let's look at its reference viewer. So it actually resides in the shooter HUD layout. So let's do the same thing for the mana bar. So it's right here. Let's go ahead and add the mana bar right under it. So mana bar. All right, and let's have it have pretty much the same setup as the health bar. Its anchor is half 1. I guess I could just copy it over, paste, and then its position, x is 0, and then minus 70. Let's have minus 50 so they don't overlap. All right, and then let's choose size to content and align them half horizontally. Yeah, so they're pretty close. I guess I could put it a bit lower. So the mana bar, let's put it a bit lower, so maybe minus 80. Oh, the opposite. Maybe minus 65. Oh, 65. Okay, that looks a bit better. So now we have our mana bar, and now we need to hook it up to some logic. So let's go ahead and create a mana component that will be very similar to our health component. So we can go ahead and close all of these. We are pretty much done with these, except for the mana bar. Um, and let's just create a new C++ class. So let's navigate to the health component. Okay, Lyra health component. So it's a game framework component. So let's just do the same. So basically the health component, it waits until the ability system exists, and then it just sets some delegate, or it just hooks itself up to some delegate to know when the attribute value has changed. And then it handles how the health changing, and it calls delegates that are exposed to blueprint. It has a lot of like really nice getters, like get health, get max health, get health normalized, which is very useful for the progress bar. Um, and it also contains some handling of when you're out of health to like do some special UI, like saying no health and resetting, or have like playing some animation for death. Um, yeah, and it handles the death state also. So this is all stuff we don't really need. Like pretty much all we need to know is to know when the mana has changed. But it's definitely good to replicate or do as Lyra has done. So it's instead of just adding a delegate in the player state itself and creating delegates over there, a component is just a very nice spot for the mana to for the blueprints to have getters of like when the mana changes. So yeah, let's go ahead and choose the game framework component. All right, so game framework component. Next, and then this one we'll just call it a mana component. And choose the Lyra game. And let's put it the same spot that the health component is in, which is under the character. And then let's go ahead and create the class. And then you can actually go ahead and get this code from my GitHub repo that I'll post in the description. Because it's a lot of code, but it's mostly some duplicates. And there's one change with the trust and open this window. A lot of time it says trust and open, doesn't say it says like the solution's already open, but it usually ends up just working fine. All right. So yeah, go ahead and get my code from the GitHub repo and paste it into here. All right, I had a little bit of issues because I started typing and changing my files as it was compiling or live editing. So when that happens, you can have some issues. So I just closed and I restarted my writer, and now it's all good. So yeah, now you'll see that it's very similar to the health component. The biggest differences are that the delegate that we use to hook up with the blueprint and to assign events in the blueprint side, it doesn't have the instigator, but that it makes sense because when you take your mana, you're your own instigator. And also we use the combat set instead of the health set, and there's way more functionality on the Lyra health component than on the mana one. So I'll just go over it slowly if people are not copying from the GitHub. So I'll just leave it on the screen for a little bit. Hopefully the quality of the code, or the readability of the code is good on YouTube. It's interesting that this one's grayed out. It's because it's never used in Blueprint yet. Writer is so good. I completely recommend it. Yeah, okay. So we actually need to create the mana component. So let's just go ahead and see how the health component is created. So I press Shift Alt F12 to search for usages. So it's actually created in Lyra character. So let's just duplicate that, but have the mana component instead. So mana component. Okay, and let's just add a for declaration. Okay, and then this one is surely initialize. So yeah, under the constructor. So let's just create our mana component in the constructor of Lyra character. Oh, create default subobject, mana component. I'll just call it mana component. All right, and because I auto completed it, I think it included the mana component. So I'll just scroll up. Don't see the, oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so that should be sufficient. And now we can update our mana UI to actually use this mana component. Oh, actually, one more thing before you compile is we need to actually initialize the component with the ability system when it's ready. So let's go navigate to Lyra character on ability system initialized, and then type in mana component initialize with ability system. So this is the Lyra ability system component. So this is needed so that the component knows about the Lyra, the combat set, and it can subscribe to when the attribute changes. We also need to initialize it from the ability system when the ability system is initialized. And now let's debug it. Oh, I was just missing a parentheses. All right, so now it's time to just update the mana UI to use the correct mana component. So let's just search for that. So it's the widget mana bar. All right. So let's start ahead by actually removing the part where the person dies. Ah, yeah, so let's just zoom in to the health changed. And it's right before bind to animation finished. So let's just unhook it here, and then compile, save, and we can pretty much rename every single variable mana instead of health. But let's just focus on binding to the delegate and having the data work. So the first thing you need to do is when you bind to unpossessed pawn change, let's find the mana component. So those are all the new functions we just added, and let's just replace that, and then get mana normalized. All right, and then let's bind to on mana change. So let's just bind event to on mana changed. And then let's create an event with the same signature. So create event. And then it's pretty nice. You can just create one, create a matching event. So let's just do, yeah, let's do an event, not a function. So create matching event on mana changed. All right. And then let's put that one in, on health changed. So let's hook these up here. It's control to drag from a pin, which is nice, like control click. So new value, health change, goodbye. Okay. And then let's unbind. So same deal here. So old pawn, find mana component. If it's valid, then let's unbind from the event. Unbind event on mana changed. On mana changed. All right. So this one is hooked up. Oh, unbind. Ah, okay. It's starting to look like spaghetti here. And yeah, let's just go drag this one over there. Okay, so if it's not valid, it also unbinds from the animation finished, which we don't really need. But let's just keep everything pretty much hooked up. Just modified a little bit for mana. We can now delete this one because it has to do with the health. Goodbye health, goodbye health. And let's put this one here. I am not sure what this one used to be. Okay, so bind. Here you go. Okay. And it doesn't handle the max mana changed. So that would be in your case, like if you need to make the mana bar longer or change the values on it, that would be up to you. But it would be pretty much the same setup as the on mana update or on mana changed. Yeah, so this looks good. I guess we might as well rename health to mana just to it won't be as confusing. So health, mana old value, mana new value, mana number. Oh, this one does not want to be changed because it is in the designer. So this is the health number. So mana number. Change. Everything should be good now. Yeah, that looks good. I'll search for anything else that has health. I mean, there's update health bar, but it's not hooked into anything, which is interesting. Scalar parameter, health current. Those ones I will leave that way because it's the actual material instance parameter name. But you could go ahead if you want to make like a custom material instance and name it mana current. But for now, let's just leave it this way. And it should be good now. So let's go ahead and open up the shooter gym. And let's see if our mana bar is updating. All right, so let's use the dash. Ah, there you go. It updates nicely. So now I have 0 mana. I can't do anything. So you now have the mana hooked up to the UI. Let's now create a pad, kind of like this health and damage pad, so that we can see, or we can set up a gameplay effect for regenerating mana. All right, let's see how the health one is set up. So the health bar, it is a gameplay effect pad. So let's navigate to it and see what is up with that. Okay, let's browse to it. So gameplay effect pad. Let's actually drop that in. All right, and then it basically just has a gameplay effect to apply, and when the player is on it, it applies that effect forever until they end overlap. So let's find, so environment gameplay. So the effect pad damage. Let's create a new gameplay effect, but for mana regeneration. So gameplay, let's do blueprint class and then gameplay effect. Let's call this one GE gameplay effect pad mana regen. Okay. And then, so this one will be an infinite duration. It will add, let's say 10 mana. So 10, oops. It will add 10 mana every second. And let's just compile, save, and let's apply this gameplay effect to this pad. So yeah, it's nice. It even puts the name. So let's see if that works. Okay, so I use my mana, go over here, and it regenerates. So this gameplay effect you could also put on your character to have like a slow mana regeneration, or you can also dig into how the health potion works. So if you wanted to add a constant mana regeneration to your character, you could actually add it in the pawn data. So let's just navigate to that. So the experience we use is control points. Okay, and this one adds the hero data shooter game. So I think it is under the hero data shooter game, and then it's the ability set shooter hero. So let's just find that one. So this one is where it grants all the abilities, and it also grants some effects. So this only effects it has is the is player. So let's actually add the gameplay effect we just created. That adds so gameplay effect adds mana over time. So yeah, so this will just have the gameplay effect be on the player forever. So even when you use your mana, it should regenerate. So use it, aha, and it regenerates. So there you have it. So you have your mana, and as a bonus section, let's also implement the God mode so that whenever you choose God, whenever you use the cheat God, it won't actually use mana. Okay, so let's stop this and let's actually just open back up our writer project and let's compare with the it was the Lyra health set. So this is where the pre-gameplay effect execute and post-gameplay effects execute comes in. So let's just navigate there. So they have damage from self-destruct. We don't really care about that part. But what we do care is the cheat for God mode. And there's also a cheat for unlimited health. So if you have a cheat for unlimited mana, then you can do the same kind of logic. So let's just add some logic for the God mode. So let's navigate to the Lyra combat set. And let's add the pre-gameplay effect execute. Let's see what's in post-gameplay. So this one is more of a message. So we'll skip the post one. All we need is the pre-gameplay effect execute. So that will not actually use mana, but it will succeed. The ability will succeed its cost. Yeah, so let's just copy that over. Oh, wrong button. All right. Okay, so if the parrot doesn't succeed, return false. So if false. All right, and then let's just copy this one over. So if the evaluated data from the gameplay effect is the mana attribute, so this is one of the nice function that the attribute accessors generates. So if data evaluated, and this one, you actually need to include the gameplay effect extension. All right. So if your magnitude, so if you're losing mana, because it doesn't matter if you're gaining mana, that's okay, we'll get clamped to 100 anyways. So if you, there you go, there's the God mode. And it's good to also surround it with the if not build shipping, because in a shipping build, you will not actually have the cheat manager, so it doesn't matter if you use God mode or not, because you won't be able to. So build shipping, unless you, I think there's a way you could enable cheats, but no, I think that's more in a development build. So you check the God mode sheet, and let's include the Lyra gameplay tags. So that actually looks like this here. Okay, and then we don't need is damage from self-destruct because this doesn't apply here. So do not take away any mana. So, and we'll just do the God mode. But you could totally also add a cheat for unlimited mana. So if we navigate to that, it's in the Lyra gameplay tags, and then you can pretty much follow what the unlimited health one does. But for now, this is sufficient enough for the God mode. So let's go ahead and stop and rerun. And I forgot one line. Not all returned paths return something. So if you get past all of this, just return true. Alright, so we're back. Let's play. Okay, and then let's input God mode. So it doesn't actually consume any mana anymore, but the cost passes, so you can still use this ability. So yeah, let's re-enable the bots and see if everything's okay there too. Okay, so let's just stop this simulation in the world setting. Let's just find our bots again. So control points. Oh. Okay, and then in the shooter bot spawner, let's open that up. And number of bots to create, let's say 3. Compile, save, and let's play. Oof. So as you see, you have to do a little bit more. So as you can see, your mana keeps regenerating even when you die, so that's something you'll have to handle. But overall, it works and it has a UI. So this is pretty much what I would use for like a casting a spell. Nothing really on the dash or any movement because it's very restrictive. There's already a cooldown. But yeah, I hope this helps you with any magic abilities or any ability that needs mana. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found some useful information. Yeah, sorry for the delay. I've had a cold for a long while. I'm glad that's almost over. Have a good one.